If you look in Europe, now there are almost 500 family businesses that are contributing and working. In Pakistan, we started with 22 families, and that has gone up to 31 or 32. And I'm just referring to the PI report that they have published. I also agree that the state culture connotation is derogative, and perhaps it's not the right thing because they are contributing to the economy. Economies flourish, only when businesses flourish. It's vice versa.
Why businesses don't flourish in Pakistan is really a factor of, a complex outcome of various factors. We have seen very good times in Pakistan. If we had been on that trajectory, evolution, we could have been in a different situation. Now we are in a different trajectory. We are in a trajectory of accountability and regulation, and the perception is everybody is a crook.
We have big businesses in Pakistan. I'll give you, for example, Bahria Town is a very big business in a very big domestic sector. But generally, Pakistani, and generally also, if you look at the example of other countries, businesses that venture overseas are usually domestic champions. So they dominate Japan first, and then they go outside Japan.
Every single country that has progressed has done it by selecting certain industries that they promote. Even the United States, which is generally a very open country, protects, for example, the defense industry, the high-tech and microelectronics industry. Now they're trying to carve back the chip industry into the United States. So every country selects certain areas where they want to put their investment in and progress.
The topic that we have been given, all those who have been invited as panelists are exception to that rule. They have done very well, their businesses have flourished, and so it would be very important to hear them out as to how they have reached where they are, but in doing so, there are a few things that we need to address, and we can actually focus on those areas. Number one, we keep saying that businesses don't flourish because, number one, we don't have the policies that encourage these businesses. Is it our priority or not? Businesses don't flourish in isolation. Economic issues are not only, the reasons are not only economic, they are deeper reasons, whether it's human behavior or political behavior. So may I start with you, and you are from Nishat Junior Group, and you have built it on, you've been a CEO since 1990, I believe. Why is it that we keep saying that we've been taken over by family businesses? If you look at globally, the family businesses contribute almost 65% to the GDP. So what is this perception? Are we saying that in the family businesses, do we have we have independent professionals who are heading it? Are we resistant to that? What are the things that contributed in making your business big, and where are we lagging behind? Because if you look, we were just having a chat in the morning, and 30 years back, Pakistan was far ahead than India. Now where are we, and why are we here?
Thank you, Rahat. I think it's important to really look at this situation from a perspective of what has helped various economies, businesses to flourish all over the world, rather than just focus on what is happening or not happening in Pakistan. We all talk about these issues at various forums. But I think let's just take a step back and look at a few examples. We look at Bangladesh. When it was part of Pakistan, their GDP per capita was substantially lower than the West Pakistan. So what happened in 1971 that today their GDP per capita is more than India also? There is a wave of optimism in Bangladesh, and businesses are growing. We look at India. 30 years ago, they had to pledge their gold, send jumbo jets. outside of India filled with gold because they had 3 to 6 weeks left of import reserves. We can look at numerous examples all over the world. You can look at United States, Texas, there are cities in Texas where half the city is in Mexico and half the city is in United States of America. And the difference between these two cities or the economies of those two cities and the way people progress and the businesses of these two cities are dramatic. So it's the same people, same DNA. I think that we give too much importance to individuals and businesses and rules and taxes. I think there is a different way countries have progressed. It's first of all visionary leadership that has a vision to take an economy from point A to point B, and secondly they are able to provide that enabling environment. Human beings are not very different. There are so many examples all over the world. You look at Venezuela and Nigeria, they have one of the largest oil reserves in the world, and look at their economic situation. So I think we place too much emphasis on, हमारे यहाँ तेल निकल आएगा और पाक चाइना friendship हो जाएगी or somebody else will give us money. Nobody is going to do anything for us. We are going to do anything for Pakistan ourselves. And what we are going to do is a set of policy, a mindset of progress. Now, that mindset of progress in Pakistan, if you look 30 years ago, I remember in the early 90s when Pakistan market was first opened up, there were people coming here and investing in our economy, and our stock market was booming, and we were doing international transactions. A few of them I was also involved in, which nobody can even think or dream of doing. So what has happened is that our access to capital is completely blocked. And because of the risk factors associated with Pakistan, they can be real and perception. The risk of Pakistan is too high, and as such, what the return the investor demands is equally high, and at that return, most of the businesses are not going to be feasible. So, why businesses don't flourish in Pakistan is really a factor of, a complex outcome of various factors. We have seen very good times in Pakistan. If we had been on that trajectory, evolution, we could have been in a different situation. Now we are in a different trajectory. We are in a trajectory of accountability and regulation, and the perception is everybody is a crook. So, as the saying goes, you are innocent till proven guilty. It's exactly the opposite in Pakistan. You have to prove that you are innocent, otherwise you are guilty. And I think that has done more damage to Pakistan than any other thing I can think of. The way competition, the way businesses are handled in Pakistan, there is a perception. For example, I was reading these questions, and the word Seth is used like a 4-letter word. So, some people think that being a Seth or an entrepreneur is a bad thing. Now, I think that reflects the mindset of our society in general. And who has brought it to this point? Mukesh Ambani is a hero in India, but here the businessmen, everyone is trying to find out their tax returns, if they've done anything which is illegal. And I've looked at businesses in Bangladesh and India. If they went through the same scrutiny as in Pakistan, I think 90% would fail.
If you look in Europe, now there are almost 500 family businesses that are contributing and working. In Pakistan, we started with 22 families, and that has gone up to 31 or 32. And I'm just referring to the PIE report that they have published. I also agree that the Seth culture connotation is derogative, and perhaps it's not the right thing because they are contributing to the economy. Economies flourish, only when businesses flourish. It's vice versa. So, how do they flourish? You generate jobs and you generate economic activity. These are the two things. how have you helped the economy while you have grown big? Apart from paying taxes, apart from generating employment, in terms of industry, what are the actions that were taken? In terms of research and development, what is the innovation brought? And it's not just, I'm talking with reference to SAP Group, I'm talking about the family businesses. How have they contributed to this? This is.
Ji, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I agree with what Shahzad has said. I also think that, I understand the intent behind this question. Why do businesses not flourish here? And because Dr. Nadeem, Vice Chancellor of PIDE, I understand the intent that he had behind it. And as you said, I mean, many in the audience could say that the answer to this is that they do flourish. We have Shahzad Saab, some people would say SAF Group, many groups that have done very well. So, so clearly, businesses have flourished. I think what he had in mind was that why do we not have many more multi-billion-dollar Pakistani companies that are global brands or have an international presence or have succeeded outside Pakistan? And, businesses can't flourish if the economy doesn't flourish. So, in effect, you're asking why hasn't the economy flourished? And that's a long discussion. But, and because we have, I'm assuming we have a lot of economic students here. If you look at it from an economics point of view, for a business to be big, you need either a big domestic market or you need to serve an export market. And we have big businesses in Pakistan. I'll give you, for example, Bahria Town is a very big business in a very big domestic sector. But generally, Pakistani, and generally also, if you look at the example of other countries, businesses that venture overseas are usually domestic champions. So they dominate Japan first and then they go outside Japan. In Pakistan, the domestic champions have chosen not really to venture abroad. And this is really as a result of the incentives that they are faced with. And you have to keep in mind that entrepreneurs or businessmen want to make money with the least amount of risk, and maybe least amount of effort and maximum return. So because of the structure of our economy and because of the competitive advantages that the local companies, domestic companies like mine and Shahzad Saab's and others have, it suits them to serve the domestic market. And so they don't go abroad. The other issue is that in general, and I'm not an expert on this, I don't know why, but in Pakistan, businesses or businessmen do not want to structure business activity within a corporation, within a business. You would rather take an informal, and maybe it's because it's too regulated, maybe tax issues, documented issues. So when there is a disincentive to corporatize, and so naturally you don't have as many big companies as you should. I think these things are changing. Family businesses, as Shahzad said, it's become like a pejorative. But keep in mind, Pakistan is now about 75 years old. So this is now the third generation. And globally also, in the United States in the late 1800s, early 1920s, till around the 1920s, the so-called Gilded Age, you had lots of family businesses. You had the Rockefellers, you had the, Carnegie, etc., etc. And they evolved into companies that were then managed professionally. Ownership was more widespread. So beyond the third generation, it's usually very difficult for a family business to continue, and it starts to divide or it will just go away. So we may see that, we are already seeing that happening, and we may see it happen further. Just two last points. Why have Pakistani firms not gone abroad, in my view, again, because they make money easier in Pakistan. And when I've been thinking, what are the competitive advantages of a Pakistani firm, of a large Pakistani group, let's say SAF group for the sake of. One is your access to human capital. You have the ability to put together a management team. तो शहजाद साहब जिसको भी फ़ोन करेंगे, that gentleman will generally or lady will be generally ready to work for him. Whereas if you're new, they won't even answer your call. And this happens everywhere, but I think the phenomenon is stronger here. Secondly is your access to financial capital, which means bank loans. If you're a first timer in business, no bank in this country is going to give you a loan. But if you are an established group, you have a privileged access to them, not only to bank loans, but even to customer advances. And there are companies in the real estate sector who, without owning the land, customers are willing to give them money. Now, if you look at both of these competitive advantages, these don't translate well across a border. I will not have these advantages if I go to China or Malaysia. So why should I? It's not an incentive for me to, but keep in mind that these do translate well across industries. So one of the questions was, why do we have these conglomerates? Well, because if Shahzad Saab can put up a good team in textiles, then he can put up a good team in banking, in dairy, in XYZ. And if I can make more money selling biscuits and milk to Pakistanis, why should I make electronic items for the Japanese market? So these are all incentives that we have to look at. Finally, you asked what have we done for the industry? My group, our manufacturing is largely in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, so which is an area which is where there is very little industry. So when you set up industry, some of our companies have been operating for 3 generations, and there are villages from which 2-3 generations of family members have gone to work in that industry because there is no other industry in that country, in that area. And in terms of research and development, I'm alhamdulillah proud to be associated with Sky Electric. Sky Electric was a very big risk that Ashar Aziz took. No idea that the product will even work or it will sell or how it will be. So when you say there is no innovation, I think that's also not wholly correct.
Sorry. And sorry, मुझे ये भी कहा गया कि मैं इंग्लिश उर्दू दोनों में स्विच करूं और so forgive me if we've been only talking in English. आप जब ये बात करते हैं कि हम बाहर जाने का इंसेंटिव नहीं है, रिटर्न ऑन इक्विटी हमें यहाँ पे मिल जाता है, सो जाते हैं हम वहाँ पे जाना हमारे लिए इंसेंटिव नहीं रखता, तो इज़न्ट इट कि फिर तो हमें पाकिस्तान को जो भी हम सर्विसेज कर रहे हों, चाहे वो हम मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कर रहे हों, उसमें फिर हमें एक्सपोर्ट पे तो हमें खुद उन्हें अप्रोच करना चाहिए ना. आप जाएं या ना जाएं, दे शुड बी ऑफर. हमारी क्या प्रोडक्ट्स इतनी अच्छी हैं, हम ग्लोबली इतने कम्पेटिटिव हैं कि हम सिर्फ अपनी डोमेन में रहते हुए, पाकिस्तान में रहते हुए compete कर सकेंगे. Will that be the right approach for businessmen? कि जी हम we are fine here because we are having access to finance, हमें अच्छा यहाँ पे बैंकिंग को सपोर्ट मिल रहा है, हमें यहाँ पे प्रॉफिट्स भी बहुत अच्छे मिल रहे हैं. क्या हमारी प्रोडक्ट्स उस मेयार की होंगी जो बाहर होती हैं? बिकॉज जब हम कंपटीशन की बात करते हैं, इट्स नॉट अबाउट कंपटीशन, इट्स अबाउट बिजनेसेस. बिकॉज मैं बहुत ज़्यादा ये समझती हूँ कि कंपटीशन कहना जो है वो है फेयर प्ले पे बिलीव करना है. बेसिकली यू आर फॉर फेयर प्ले एंड दैट यू वांट द बेस्ट प्रोडक्ट एट द मिनिमम कॉस्ट. तो एफिशिएंसी ब्रिंग इन करना ही कंपटीशन का मकसद होता है. ज़्यादा प्लेयर्स आएँ, बेहतर प्रोडक्ट मिले, बेहतर. तो क्या ये आप इस अप्रोच के साथ हम ग्लोबल इसमें प्रोडक्ट वाइज भी compete कर सकेंगे, हमारी क्वालिटी होगी? एक ये इम्पॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट. दूसरा, आप मैं जब उस्मान ये बात एड्रेस कर लें तो आपके साथ ही मैं ये सवाल करना चाहूँगी. आपका नॉलेज प्लेटफॉर्म है एंड आई रेड दैट आपकी सिंगापुर बेस्ड कंपनी है एंड माशाल्लाह इन डिफरेंट, बैंकॉक में भी आप हैं और चाइना में भी हैं, इंडिया में भी आई वाज नोटिसिंग. तो आपने स्टार्ट कैसे किया और आप कैसे समझते हैं कि हम गोइंग बियॉन्ड द ज्योग्राफिकल बाउंड्रीज कारोबार में कैसे पाकिस्तान का इमेज भी बेहतर होता है और हाउ यू कंट्रीब्यूट टू द इकोनॉमी? जी उस्मान, फर्स्ट आई जस्ट वांटेड टू
I
अंडरस्टैंड.
think for example, there's many areas जिसमें we are very good quality. We have textiles, we have other areas. So and in other areas we can improve. So और जैसे आप बता रहे हैं knowledge based economies, IT sector, that's a completely different area. There's no reason we can't. We will have to start from some low base. लेकिन ऑलरेडी हमारी टेक्सटाइल्स, मैं टेक्सटाइल का एग्जांपल देता हूँ, इज़ अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग in terms of quality. We are very much up there.
हम पहुंचे तो हैं टेक्सटाइल में, मगर हम अभी भी पीछे हैं अपने रीजनल इसमें अगर देखा जाए तो. उस पे
क्वालिटी, मैं सिर्फ दी क्वालिटी की उस पर बात कर रहा हूं.
जी सॉरी.
So I think that, Pakistan has now been in existence for more than 70 years, and I know there are few people in textiles sitting here, but we've given it a chance. We've given textiles a chance, and over 70 years, the industry has not really grown to a substantial extent. If you look at Bangladesh, without the cotton base, they have done much better than we have. So at some stage, you need to start asking, look, we are a poor country. Every single country that has progressed has done it by selecting certain industries that they promote. Even the United States, which is generally a very open country, protects, for example, the defense industry, the high-tech and microelectronics industry. Now they're trying to carve back the chip industry into the United States. So every country selects certain areas where they want to put their investment in and progress. So I would suggest that, look, whether it's the government's fault or the industry's fault, it doesn't really matter. But over 70 years, we have heavily subsidized certain industries, and they haven't really produced the kind of impact that even Bangladesh has managed to create. So we should look to new industries. And the biggest opportunity today, the biggest opportunity by far is IT. We are suited for IT. We don't need to produce anything here. It's a huge sector. We've had already successes like Kareem and so on that have become unicorns overseas, but with a Pakistani software base. So first of all, the government has to select what industries are we going to promote and which industries will give us the fastest growth and the biggest amount of capital and the biggest positioning on the world stage. So by far, it's the IT industry. But then, how do we do it? First of all, our education system, first of all, our mental model. I'm now introducing computer science program. We have 400,000 students who come into higher education every year. Do you know how many of them are in IT? It's only about 25 to 35,000. It's growing quite fast, but it's a very small percentage. Then now we're introducing computer science in schools. The mental model of principals and parents is doctor, lawyer, and civil engineer. It's an outdated model. This is not what's going to make you succeed in the future. It's not that there won't be doctors, there won't be lawyers, there won't be civil engineers, but the growth is in data analytics, people who know IT, not necessarily programmers, and then, of course, programmers as well. So we need to fix it at the school level, we need to fix it at the university level, we need to provide the proper incentives to IT sector, and we need to say, this is a sector that we're going to bank on. Look at India. Look at what India has done. It's not done it on the strength of its textiles industry. It's done it on the strength of its IT industry. After that, other sectors have kicked in. So we welcome textiles to come behind us, not in front of us. Don't take up so much space. Let's get rid of the subsidies for textile. And if they can't do it themselves, then let's move on to other sectors. Schumpeter said, this is all about industries die and industries grow. And I'm sorry to say we have to pick the right industry. My one vote would be IT. We have the talent, we have the potential. All you young people are sitting here. Are you going to become textile saints? How many of you have ambitions to become textile saints, or that you're going to produce more spinning wheels or whatever is used in textiles? And how many of you have aspirations that with some kind of coding, some kind of analytics, you can make a career for yourself. So I want to take on this issue and say that, look, we have to select. And we have to select the industries that will work. So what are they?
Shehzad, I would certainly request you to respond to this, but before that, when you talk about prioritization of industries, we don't have it. That's one of the main causes that we have not been heading in one direction. We don't have a direction. Nobody sets a direction. But it doesn't have to be one industry at the cost of the other. You can streamline more, you can have more areas of priorities. So Shehzad, how would you?
So I think it's very important that when, the mindset I talked about, there is a perception in Pakistan about that textile industry is subsidized. Now I can ask you, what is the subsidy textile gets? You will not be able to tell me because there is none.
May I?
Actually, let me finish, Shahid. You see, the problem is that there is so much negative propaganda in this country. Actually, if I import coal from South Africa and make electricity in my own plant, it's half the price of the national grid. So why is the national grid so inefficient? That is the main question. And then they put headlines in the newspapers, subsidies of 10 rupees. Well, your cost of production is 4 times, then you have to give subsidies. Somebody doesn't pay the bill in Quetta or Sakhar, and we have to subsidize, and we are saying that we are subsidizing the industry. And I think the main issue is that why are we saying that we should not do this and do that? Do we know that Pakistan is the 4th largest cotton producer in the world? You want to shut down the entire textile industry and also shut down entire agriculture with it? No. So I think there is no competition. It's not a zero-sum game. What we have to talk about is the environment in Pakistan. In the year 1991, I did a transaction where I raised $100 million in equity financing. In 1991, today nobody will touch $1 million of equity financing. Why don't we see the reasons what has happened?
Yes.
We can talk about all these things. Everybody wants to go into IT. It looks very nice. You can play ping pong in the office. We see Google, pictures. People can have massage rooms in the office. The reality is sadly very different.
Yeah, and if I may, why that there should be prioritization of industries, manufacturing should remain the core focus, along with services, maybe on the IT side. Why I say so, कि आपने किसी भी economy में जहाँ पे boost लाना है, job employment लानी है, and as big a size as Pakistan, you can't do without the manufacturing sector. और the reason we have not done well is because हमने focus ही नहीं किया. वहाँ पे prioritization ज़रूर होनी चाहिए थी. हमारे यहाँ taxation इस तरह होती है कि it's more a tool of recovery. It is never a tool to regulate industries as per the prioritization policy. I think that is also creating an entry barrier for many businesses. This is acting as an impediment for carrying out that. Sorry, Shehzad साहब, मैं महबूब साहब को ज़रूर, क्योंकि वो प्लानिंग कमीशन के मेंबर भी रहे हैं, और हमने हुकूमत में ये बहुत ज़्यादा देखा है कि प्लानिंग तो होती है बट एक्शन नहीं होता, चीज़ें आती नहीं हैं. So how would you comment on the questions that have been just discussed as well?
Gee, I'd like first to start with Mr. Mahboob. He's repeated the mantra which everybody says, subsidies, subsidies, subsidies. Reality is that the tariff, industrial tariff, contains a cross-subsidy to other sectors, non-productive sectors. Your gas pricing to non-productive sectors has been kept so low, while the rest of the economy, the industrial or the economy that generates wealth and employment, has been charged higher. Where is the subsidy? If the textile sector asks for removal of cross subsidies, because you can't export taxes, you can't export cross subsidies. We do not compete in the Pakistan market. We compete in the international market. So if you have to compete in the international market, your cost base, especially for the items that make the bulk of your cost, have to be internationally competitive. Otherwise, you can't compete, and therefore that's the end of it. So there is no subsidy. This narrative has gone on for far too long, and the negative press about this is what has held Pakistan back.
Usman, so sorry.
Now, the one thing that has been missing in the narrative here is that why our companies, businesses do not grow beyond a certain size. Uh, there are three things that I think are key. Number one is that the government crowds out the private sector. 80% plus of all loans, of all go to the government. Then again, the government's footprint in the economy is about 70%. Where is there room for private sector companies to grow or to then thirdly, we have cultural, social, and religious issues. We have issues which sort of make us content with whatever we have. We don't have the hunger. That hunger is missing in Pakistan, which makes companies grow. Now, I mean, it's well and good to say that internationally 65% of the world economy is sort of dominated by family firms. But please look at the structure of those family firms. Those family firms have employed managers who are professionals. What is the problem in Pakistan? In Pakistan, the problem is that there is a lack of trust. There is a lack of trust in all sectors, at all levels. So unless you are able to have a number of directors or professionals running your businesses and you can trust them, you will not grow beyond what you can control yourself. And part of this is stemming from this idea that I'm sorry, I lost. But again, there are many other factors feeding into this. First of all, is our dismal savings rate. We are a consumption-based society. In order for capital generation or capital access, you need to have a pool of capital. Where is the pool of capital? Why is it that India has a savings rate of over 30% and our savings rate is 11%, I believe now? And then again, whatever we've done, we have not built systems. Without systems, the personal touch remains supreme. And a system will allow you to grow to sizes which are not dependent on your direct intervention. But we really do not have systems. Just as a matter of interest, our biggest firm, exporters, says about $500 million. And on number 50, you have a firm which only exports $10 million. So we don't have many firms that, and another statistics is that average Bangladeshi firm that exports is 3 times the size of the average Pakistani firm that exports. And these are all manifestations of the cultural issues that we carry. And part of that, as our friends have espoused, is that the lack of trust also translates into NAB and the problems that our so-called states face. Because if you make money, it is not considered kosher.
Thank you. So Usman, you wanted to add something?
Gee, I just wanted to say that the IT or textiles. And the other thing is that, a lot of these, if you want to call us Seths or Mia Saiban or Khan Saiban, whatever it is, they're sharp people. And the recent devaluation over the last 1.5 years has made people realize, people with very big businesses, that you need to have कि आपके पास unless कोई dollar revenue stream ना हो, तो that business is not really worth much. तो आप देखें a lot of people in the textile and other areas are now looking at services businesses, IT businesses, consulting businesses. So, नहीं वो तो मैंने शुरू में कहा जी कि आप वो इंसेंटिव जब नहीं रिमूव करेंगे, बट द अदर एडवांटेज ऑफ IT इज़ कि इसमें यू डोंट नीड मच फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट. देखिए ना, वी आर एन एनर्जी स्टार्व्ड कंट्री, इसमें देयर इज़ नो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, प्लस व्हाट यू नीड एज फार एज आई इज़ यू नो, अब इंडिया में द फर्स्ट IIT was set up in 1950. Indian Institute of Technology. The first IIM was set up in the early 1960s. So they do have a lot of advantages over us, and inshallah we will catch up. लेकिन अब ये भी याद रखें ना जी कि इस्लामाबाद पाकिस्तान नहीं है. You know, there are people in the other parts of the country who may not have the skills कि they can straight away go to IT. So you can't kill the existing businesses कि जी हमने future क्योंकि उस तरफ जाने. So that's just one comment that I wanted to make.
I don't want to say, you're perfectly right, it's not a zero-sum game, but it's an 80-20 game. If you give more money to the military, you'll have less money for civil expenditure. If you spend more money on civil servants, you'll have less money on development. If you give more money to one industry, you'll have less money for the other. So it may not be a zero-sum game, but you have to pick where your winning is going to take place. And I'm going to shift my argument from subsidies. Maybe you're right, I'm not a subsidy expert, but if we were sitting in Bangladesh today, and somebody were to ask, what is the story of textiles in Bangladesh over the last 50 years of Bangladesh? I don't think people would be saying, we are not getting enough subsidies, or eliminate taxes, or eliminate cross subsidies, or the government is holding us back, right? Their story would be, you know, I had no money, I had nothing, I went abroad, I started doing some outsourcing of making T-shirts, and then that business grew and I got more business and so on. In other words, the narrative in Bangladesh, which I've been there many times, my family lives there, and we've got businesses in textiles. The narrative is not that the government is holding us back. It is that we as entrepreneurs went forward and brought it back, and then we fixed government. So you have to look at what industries are doing that. Today, like if you look at us, we produce our software here, but we've been doing it since 2000. And the first time we stepped into the Pakistan market was in 2014. So it took us 14 years to come back to Pakistan actually and look at it as a market. So in other words, there's an entrepreneurial spirit that is often a spirit that is driven by necessity. If you have a capture of resources, whether it's banking resources, subsidies, land, you know, it's a complex thing. It's not just about clear-cut subsidies. Your incentive to go overseas will be less. So I do believe what has happened here is that the government, very bad, they're anti-business for sure. The big businesses are mostly sitting at the top of the pyramid, whether it's land, textiles, or whatever. They're not really incentivized, but now, Saif Saab, you're absolutely right. The exchange rate has brought this reality that maybe all this, what we have created, is not as valuable. So I think we need to look at industries not to give them subsidies, but to give them inspiration and whatever minimal support they need so they can spread their wings as entrepreneurs, just as the people of Bangladesh have done.
May I just, the difference between Bangladesh and Pakistan is that the footprint of the government over there is purely on the side of regulation rather than being in business themselves. That is the real difference between Bangladesh and Pakistan. In Bangladesh, you know, their tariffs and so on do not carry these cross subsidies or these, so their inputs are at, you know, whatever the cost is. Not like Pakistan, where we have sort of made everything so complicated and so, I mean, the other day there was a tweet by the power secretary that he's using tariffs to equalize wealth in Pakistan. I mean, sure.
Interesting things, but one thing that I may add, and I feel that most of the participants also hinted at that as well, two industries that have flourished a lot. One is industry of accountability, and then the other is regulation. With these two industries there, businesses find it really difficult to flourish. I mean, would you like to share your experiences so that it can highlight how these have interfered?
Thank you. I just, I think this subject is very interesting. For example, if in Pakistan we had no PIA, no steel mill, no power sector, everything is in the private sector. So if you looked at the income of people and you taxed people according to the income, which we don't do, and you have a lower tax rate, actually, we will have a higher tax revenue. The problem is the industrial growth or the growth of any businesses is also stifled by the multi-layered taxation. मैं आपको एक छोटा सा example देता हूँ. If I want to buy a laptop computer and I paid cash 100,000 rupees, but if I want to buy it in Nishad Chunia, I'll have to take 10% withholding tax and 17% sales tax. That I have to add to the price. Nobody is going to pay for it. And if you look at even, very interesting, this super tax, the way it is calculated, when Mr. Ishaq Dar makes an announcement in the assembly, he'll say, ji 50 crore rupees se upar aapko tax, super tax lag jayega. Nobody understands that if you have a capital of 100 billion and you make a profit of 50 crores, you should be fired rather than, saying that you are making an enormous profit. There is no correlation between capital and... So what the message the government is giving is that making a profit of 50 crores plus is a bad thing. And I think the whole narrative in Pakistan has to change. Even the private people like us, Mehboob Saab, are all saying this, you are getting it, we are getting it, we should do this. The whole narrative is flawed. बात ये है, अगर कोई गैर शरई और गैर अखलाकी काम नहीं है तो करने दें. क्यों हम हर चीज़ को रोक के बैठे हुए? हम कोई काम नहीं करने देते किसी को. कोई पैसा बनाता है तो हम कहते हैं भाई बताओ तेरे पास आया कैसे. हमें तो उसको सितारा इम्तियाज देना चाहिए कि तुमने प्रॉफिट किया, लेकिन हम तो उसको गाली देते हैं. तो इस नैरेटिव के साथ, और ये दूर के ढोल सुहाने हैं. आपको पता है बांग्लादेश में क्या होता है? कोई बैंक किसी से पैसे नहीं मांगता. स्टेट ने कहा हुआ है आंख बंद करो, डिफॉल्ट करने दो, ग्रो करने दो. जाके वो पूरी दुनिया के पास रोते हैं कि हमें लीस्ट डेवलप कंट्री का स्टेटस दें. इवन टुडे बांग्लादेश इन यूरोप हैज़ अ स्टेटस कॉल्ड EBA. EBA का मतलब क्या है? एवरीथिंग बट आर्म्स. वो दुनिया की हर चीज़ एक्सपोर्ट कर सकते हैं, उनसे कोई सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ ओरिजिन भी नहीं मांगता. वो कहते हैं हम गरीब हैं. अरे भाई आप कहाँ से गरीब हैं? आपकी तो GDP इंडिया से भी ज़्यादा है. सक्सेसफुली उन्होंने ये काम किया है. वो अपने आप को गरीब पोर्ट्रे करते हैं. हम लोग तो आपस में लड़ रहे हैं. हम कहाँ से तरक्की करेंगे? हम तो यहाँ टैक्स लगा लगा के ख़त्म कर देते हैं. जो आता है गोरा उसको हम एयरपोर्ट पर रिसीव करते हैं. जो फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर आता है उसके लिए हम एक कॉन्फ्रेंस करते हैं. जो लोकल आता है उसको नैब के दफ्तर भेज देते हैं. ये कहाँ से करेंगे? मुझे तो पता है ये हमारी तो गुलामाना जहनियत ख़त्म ही नहीं हुई. आपने कभी सुना है कि कोई लोकल इन्वेस्टर को इंसेंटिव दिया हो? यहाँ सऊदी को देते हैं या चाइना के को दे रहे हैं, उनके लिए लाल कालीन बिछा रहे हैं. किसी को पता नहीं है वो क्यों यहाँ इन्वेस्ट करेंगे अगर यहाँ लोकल नहीं करता. कभी इस क्वेश्चन का आंसर चाहिए मुझे. वाई कांट अ लोकल इन्वेस्टर गो एंड डू दिस रेकोडेक इन बलोचिस्तान? हमें बाहर का इन्वेस्टर क्यों चाहिए? हमारी कैपिटल मार्केट का इतना साइज छोटा क्यों हो गया? 30 साल पहले तो इससे बड़ा था. सो हम अपने रिफ्लेक्ट नहीं कर रहे. पाकिस्तान में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, कोई करप्शन नहीं है. हर दुनिया के मुल्क में एक सर्टन लेवल ऑफ करप्शन होती है. इंडिया में नहीं है, चाइना में नहीं है, बांग्लादेश में नहीं. मेरे ख्याल है बांग्लादेश और इंडिया में पाकिस्तान से ज़्यादा है. हमने इसको मेन फोकस बना दिया. इफ़ वी वांट टू फ्लरिश, और ये जो बिजनेसेस है ना फैमिली, व्हेन दे बिकेम अ साइज, इनके पास मजबूरी है. दे हैव नो चॉइस बट टू प्रोफेशनलाइज. आप उनको वहाँ तक जाने ही नहीं देते. दैट्स द प्रॉब्लम.
Shahzad, while I agree with most of the things that you have said, and I think maybe none would disagree, but there's one thing that as a regulator, what I noticed, in the best of the businesses, the biggest of the businesses, to them cornering the market, colluding or cartelization is not considered a wrong. You know, this is visibly an anti-competitive. I'm not talking any about one particular industry. I can name sugar, cement, telecom. You come across all these industries. So, and then on the other hand, unfortunately, what happened was that the government is supposed to be a competition advocate, you know. This competition commission had to do that policy advocacy, I agree, but basically we are pro-business. We want businesses to grow. We are not against making profits. It's just the abuse of the power that we were restricting. It's the unfair play that we had to check. But what we notice in all this process is that हमने तो कीमत कम ही की ना, हमने तो मिलकर के एक भाईचारा ही किया ना. So this concept is not changing. जी.
मैं आपको एक इंडस्ट्री का बताऊं जो शायद आप भूल गई. देखिए ये जो सीमेंट है या पॉलिएस्टर है, ये कार्टेल बनाते हैं, बिल्कुल गलत है. मैं इससे 100% आपसे एग्री करता हूं. बट एक इंडस्ट्री यहाँ पर एक कंपटीशन और बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है, वो बैंकिंग है.
वो मैं अभी उसको लिखा हुआ था कि वो
20 साल से आपने किसी को बैंकिंग लाइसेंस नहीं दिया.
यस.
आप किसी को बैंकिंग लाइसेंस दें और इतना रेगुलेटेड है ये कि आप तो कहते हैं ये जो सीईओ है बैंक का, ये तो बिल गेट्स भी नहीं बन सकता पाकिस्तान के किसी बैंक का सीईओ. यहाँ तो खैर बिल गेट्स किसी नॉर्मल कंपनी का भी नहीं बन सकता क्योंकि वो बीए पास नहीं है. तो यहाँ पहले आपने किसी कंपनी का सीईओ बनना हो, चाहे आप 25 अरब का प्रॉफिट कर चुके हैं, चाहे आपके परदादा उस कारोबार को जानते हैं, लेकिन पब्लिक लिमिटेड कंपनी का सीईओ बनने के लिए आपको एक इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस में 3 दिन का जाके कोर्स करना पड़ता है. तो हर आदमी ने अपनी टेरिटरी बना ली है. स्टेट बैंक ऑफ पाकिस्तान जो है वो नया बैंक नहीं आने देता. अमेरिका में 15,000 बैंक है, तो यहाँ क्यों नहीं हो सकते? कंपटीशन अलाउ कीजिए, कंपटीशन विल ब्रिंग द रेट्स डाउन. लॉस को ठीक कीजिए, रिकवरी के, लोग हर एक को लेंड करेंगे. स्टेट आके 70% आपसे बोरोइंग कर लेता है, उनको जरूरत क्या किसी को लेंड करने की? Free market is the way to go. There is no other option.
Yes, agreed.
Can I just?
This Swan, yes, you thing, and then we'll take the questions from the audience.
आप कह रहे हैं ना जी कि कार्टेल्स बनती हैं, तो this is an economics audience, तो मैं बार बार कहता हूँ कि people will do what they have an incentive to do. लेकिन ये पाकिस्तान से बाहर लोग कार्टेल्स अगर बना सकते हैं, they do make it. And you know, let's give the example of the cement industry. It's well known that there is a cartel.
Yes.
And why should they not do? They are doing it in the interest of their shareholders. उन्होंने पाकिस्तान के खातिर काम नहीं करने हैं, इन्फ्लेशन को कम नहीं करना है, वो करेंगे जो उनकी शेयर होल्डर्स के लिए. Now this is the job of the regulators to when we are all talking about it on that it exists, and you have remained head of the, you've remained the competition czar or czarina of Pakistan. So why aren't we not doing anything? And I'll give you another example. Ji, when we started Sky Electric, it was the first solar company that was installing solar systems on a large scale. हमें एक दिन अल्टरनेटिव एनर्जी डेवलपमेंट बोर्ड से बिल्कुल हमारा काम ही उन्होंने स्टॉप कर दिया कि हम आपके, उस वक्त हमारे कोई 600 कस्टमर थे, कि हर कस्टमर को फ़ोन करेंगे और उनसे पूछेंगे कि आपको कोई मसला तो नहीं है. तो अच्छा, अगर मेरी कंपनी होती कि मैं घरों में जनरेटर लगाता ही छोटे डीजल के या पेट्रोल के, तो कोई मुझसे पूछता भी नहीं. So you see, you either have too much regulation or you have too little regulation. If you and the way to find it, identify it is कि वो कौन सा sector है which is consistently profitable but which has not seen market entry from outside Pakistan. अब देखें ना, अगर सीमेंट इतना profitable है तो बाहर से कुछ साल पहले लफार्ज आए थे, लेकिन generally नहीं आते हैं. So this tells you that something is broken and the regulation needs to be fixed.
That's true, but what I'm saying is that there's no denying the fact कि internationally they all cartelize. जब ये बात करते हैं कि जी पाकिस्तान में तो ये लॉ ही नहीं आना चाहिए था, अभी तो हम 100 साल पीछे हैं, तो हमारा तो जवाब ये होता था कि भाई it's about behavior across the globe is the same, तो ये हर जगह होना चाहिए, fair play is the need of the time. लेकिन ये कहना, मैं सिर्फ ये बात हाईलाइट करना चाहती हूँ कि लास्ट टाइम भी हमारा एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग सेशन था जिसमें था रेगुलेटरी स्लज के ऊपर. तो मैंने कहा था यार ये रेगुलेटरी स्लज की जब आप बात करते हैं तो उसमें एडजुडिकेटरी स्लज ना भूलें, बिकॉज हम अगर कार्टेल्स बस्ट करते जा रहे हैं और अनवेल करते जा रहे हैं, और इन सारी इंडस्ट्रीज़ में अनवेल करना भी है, दे आर वेरी पावरफुल पीपल. सो that unveiling is not just getting its recognition कि we have busted those cartels and the judicial review is not coming. So there are a lot of challenges, वो तो जब हम बात करेंगे लेकिन there should be, I think, a recognition कि competition is good and we should refrain from these practices. इसको ये justify नहीं कर सकते हम कह के कि बाहर भी cartels होते हैं तो हम यहाँ भी करें. This is, I mean, you can have your view. Obviously, all businesses are doing it for profit, for higher and increased profit, but there are certain values we subscribe to. And I would like to stop here and ask questions from the audience as we have less time. Yes, please.
हेलो मैडम, मेरा कोई इंट्रोडक्शन नहीं, मैं तो देहात गांव से आया हूँ, बिजनेस मुझे ज़्यादा पता नहीं है, लेकिन इतना पूछूंगा कि ये सारे बिजनेसमैन शायद बैठे हुए, आप लोगों को फेवर चाहिए रियासत से या लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड चाहिए? दूसरी बात, मेरा दूसरा सवाल ये है कि रियासत या खुसूसन रियासत के वो इदारे जो वो किसी कानून को अकाउंटेबल नहीं है, उनको बिजनेसेस चलाना चाहिए, और उस इदारों के बिजनेस चलाने की हमारे मुल्क और उसकी मैशियत और उसके बिजनेस पर क्या असरात है? शुक्रिया.
Can I ask Rahat? Lee, can I ask a quick question and maybe they can take these together? देखिए जी, मेरा बड़ा सिंपल सवाल है. Businessmen, as I've looked at them, all of you, basically we like to go into protected sectors. For example, अभी आपके ग्रुप ने गाड़ी स्टार्ट कर दी है, which is a protected sector. आपके ग्रुप ने ये सोलर वगैरह protected sector. The biggest thing is that is a businessman looking for protection or can you actually step out into the open competitive world? इसके साथ साथ ये चीज़, what new products do you develop? One thing that I've seen, all businesses in Pakistan and I've looked at them have no budgets for R&D. मुझे in fact one of the major industrialists once said to me in a meeting, I think Shahid you were there too, कि we don't do R&D. R&D is done by those guys outside. So you guys develop no new product. You guys have very little export. In fact, I think most of the people say textile has some exports, but it really depends on the energy price. And the other two houses there have no exports at all. The third is a startup, so I won't talk about it. So the question is, why aren't we export driven? Secondly, why don't we develop new products? Why don't we believe in R&D? Why don't you, and third thing is, why don't you believe in using the financial markets? I've heard this enough, कि government के loans have 60-70% or whatever. What about the stock market? I mean, there are two forms of financing, equity and banks. You guys love banks. Why? Because it's cheaper, easy to default on, or why can't you sell equity? I think these are very important questions, please.
देखिए, in Pakistan and in any other country, the biggest success, the driver of success is entrepreneurship. Our Prophet, peace be upon him, himself was an entrepreneur. So this is within our cultural and our religious DNA that entrepreneurs make businesses. I mean, Silicon Valley was started in garages and it's now become the biggest industry in the world. There are many examples like this. We have a very young population, and this population, we should be supporting this population and figuring out, and the one biggest question, if the government had to only ask one question, it should be, how can we unlock the entrepreneurship spirit of people in Pakistan? And a lot of it can come without big subsidies, without big investment. And this is where things like IT and things that are light, Saif Saab, as you said, in terms of investment, in terms of regulations, these are things that can flourish in Pakistan. So I believe the number one question of the government should be how to create an unlevel playing field for the people who are entrepreneurs. The 22 families were given their chance and they did very well. But that model is over now. We don't need 22 families anymore or 31 families. We need 10,000 entrepreneurs. And that should be our goal. How do we create 10,000 entrepreneurs in this country who will take Pakistan to the next level? And they can. And most of them are probably under 30 at this stage.
Should I?
Yeah, please.
Maybe I have huge respect for Dr. Saab and of course his knowledge of economics and he's also kindly invited us. So, but you know, ji, again to say कि जी आप why are you going into protected sectors is, you know, well, because the businessmen have an incentive to go into protected sectors, and the way to you know, counter this is to you either do it through industrial policy. For example, in Korea in the early days, they said कि जी, if you want to the right to manufacture cars for the domestic market, you need to export a certain amount. So there are ways that you can do it. You know, I just want to clarify, ji, solar when we started was not a protected sector. And we actually built this product. We have a 50 member engineering team, which means engineers, power electronics, software engineers, and there was no guarantee that this, when we had our initial event, हमने जी 2017 में जब लॉन्च किया तो मैरियट होटल में हमने 500 लोग बुलाए और हमारे फाउंडर अशर अजीज़ ने एक ज़बरदस्त, ये अशर अजीज़ एक फाउंडर हैं एक कंपनी के फायर आए जो एक साइबर सिक्योरिटी कंपनी है, नैस्डैक पर लिस्ट भी किया था। तो उस लॉन्च जब हमने किया तो हमारे 500 में से सिफर ऑर्डर हमारे पास आए थे, किसी ने भी ऑर्डर नहीं प्लेस किया। तो ओवर टाइम फिर ग्रेजुअली जब उन्होंने इसकी यूटिलिटी उनको अंदाज़ा हो गया कि जी सोलर इज़ द वे फॉरवर्ड, so people have Dr. Saab taken risks, and I strongly believe that you need regulation to remove some of these things, and I also agree with Shehzad Saab कि लोगों को in general काम करने दें, get out of the way of businesses, and generally a lot of these things will improve. And finally जी, when देखें जब अब हम जो फैमिली ग्रुप्स हैं वो अब इतने बड़े हो गए हैं कि वो कैपिटल ख़ुद अब इजीली बैंक से नहीं रेज़ कर सकते, और वो अगर स्टॉक मार्केट जाएंगे तो अगर मैं CEO हूँ और मेरा बेटा CFO है और मेरा कज़न CEO है तो कोई हमें पैसा नहीं देगा। सो मजबूरन family businesses will professionalize in order to tap into capital markets and also in order to attract talent, because people will not want to work for family businesses.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mohammad Daniel Arshad. I have a question. Sir over there said that you need 10,000 entrepreneurs. Don't you think there is a domestic dilemma here that when we graduate from a business school, the parents of the certain person who wants to be an entrepreneur, they say that you want to do this or do you want to do that? For example, you want to open a restaurant and they say, yaar itna pad ke aap bawarchi banenge. So this is a hurdle in creating a new entrepreneurs.
मेरी बीवी भी बावर्ची बन गई थी, फिर बाद में मेरी वालदा आई तो उनकी वालदा आई, उन्होंने कहा कि आप क्या काम कर रहे हो? शी सेड मैं बावर्ची हूँ। सो शी सेड ये मैं इन लोगों को नहीं बता सकती, न्यूयॉर्क में हम रहते थे। शी सेड आप ये कह दें कि आप रेस्टोरेंट खोलने का आपका इरादा है तो ठीक है। दैट वाज एक्सेप्टेड। आई थिंक look, the biggest issue is talent. And talent is not just the raw talent, but talent that is structured into productive and innovative capacity. So one of the things that is holding us back is that our mental model of success is a 20th century model, just like our cricket is a 20th century model. We think doctor, lawyer, civil engineer. These are the kinds of things you have to go for. The mental model has to change, the education base has to change, a little bit of incentive has to be given to new companies that can flourish and go overseas very, very quickly. Because I think, Saif Saab, what you said about South Korea is very illustrative. They said you can set up an industry here provided you have certain level of exports. So it is clear that the industries that will succeed in the future are industries that can serve Pakistan as well as export their products. And so if we take that criteria, we develop talent properly, I'm sure that Pakistan can succeed. But it's not going to succeed simply by us fixing tariffs or levelizing subsidies or giving subsidies, but it's really by focusing on the talent of people of Pakistan and the entrepreneurial energy that is there in this country. And we just have to channel it in the correct way. It's the lowest cost and it's the highest return.
May I add something? What Mehboob Saab has said is absolutely right. What is the wealth of Pakistan is the human resource in Pakistan. What we have failed to do is to develop institutions that, educational institutions, who turn out people who are competent and who are at par with the graduates, say, from India or from other places. Last year, we carried out a survey of IT professionals who were being graduating from various universities, and we found that their level of expertise was nowhere near what a graduate from any other country
Yes.
is. So what we started, and this is a private group, is training fresh graduates, and through links with Singapore or other places, we got that then developed these people to an extent that it hurt. It hurt us in a negative way because those graduates which we retrained found jobs abroad. So we again left with some zero.
One thing before I conclude, and there was a very interesting story that Shahzad had to share, but allow me to wrap up the points that I have and then we'll end it on that note. If I would just give you an overview of what are the reasons that businesses are not flourishing. We have spared banks very kindly, actually. One of the reasons is that banks are also not being innovative at all. They are not producing products. They are only relying on rent seeking. They're investing on the treasury bills, and that's it. And I would like to share, but this is not perhaps a forum, but I would request you all to look at the search and inspection that was carried out against banks on bidding a higher rate for lending it to the government. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised you find so much similarity out there. There's no finding yet, but yes, in all this, banks have a role and they are not discharging that role. That's the minimum. Two is absolutely a mindset, the approach towards it. Where have we gone wrong? What is it that we have done wrong is primarily the approach. Questioning people who are contributing to the economic activity, that is not wrong, but you see, don't make them feel as if they are guilty because they are contributing to the economy. Third, which I also believe perhaps should have been at the top, is the prioritization policy. Do we know in which direction we are heading? When you talk of entrepreneurs and the talent hunt and the dearth in talent, and the ecosystem not being there in Pakistan, any setup that you would like to build, do you have the expertise? Do you have the machinery? Do you have the suppliers, distributors, customers and all? This ecosystem doesn't exist for the businesses. Are we creating any barriers? Are there social barriers as well? And that's for Shahzad to explain it. Very simple words, so I'll not touch that. I agree with Usman, and we cannot deny this is a reality. Businesses work for profits. So they are not charitable organizations that they're first to think about others. If they will make profits, if they will generate economic activity, we are going to be beneficiaries. It's our job to rectify it, but it's important to recognize their part to the extent where the abuse is being committed. We have heard about the corruption and the accountability part and how the economic agenda has been corrupted on account of this corruption. I feel that corruption has corrupted the economic agenda, actually, unfortunately. But yes, Shahzad, would you like to add, which you feel how people are left out from participating in the whole economy? Who are those people?
सो आई थिंक जो एक सवाल पूछा गया था ना कि आप स्टेट से क्या एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं, मेरा जवाब भी उससे कनेक्टेड है. आई थिंक स्टेट का रोल सिंपल होना चाहिए. स्टेट का रोल है लोगों को एक तालीम बहुत सस्ती प्रोवाइड करना गुड क्वालिटी की, जिसमें स्टेट मिजरेबली फेल हो गई। और यहीं से हमने एलीट कैप्चर क्रिएट किया है, क्योंकि 80-90% लोग आपके मैट्रिकुलेशन सिस्टम में जाते हैं, और आप अपनी पाकिस्तान में बिज़नेस फैमिली देख लें, ब्यूरोक्रेसी देख लें, मेरे ख़्याल में अब तो मिलिट्री भी आप देख लें, तो ये सब O लेवल और A लेवल के बच्चे। तो हमने 80-90% लोगों को सिस्टम से बाहर निकाल दिया है। उसके बाद हमारा एक और बायस है जो बाहर से पढ़ के आता है। जो बाहर से पढ़ कर आएगा वो, उस पे भी हमारा बायस है कि हम स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट में ही बायस्ड हैं कि ये तो हमसे ज़्यादा काबिल है, तो हम उसको भी ज़्यादा ऑप्शन दे देते हैं। आप इंडिया में देखें, ये सारा सिस्टम जो है वहाँ तो मैट्रिक्स, ये और A लेवल सिस्टम ही नहीं है। तो जब तक आप अपने तालीम को सस्ता नहीं करेंगे और उसको लोगों के लिए अवेलेबल नहीं करेंगे, ये सिस्टमेटिकली हमने 80-90% लोगों को कंपटीशन से बाहर निकाल दिया। अब आपस में जो हम 10% रह गए हैं, हम आपस में खेलेंगे और हम मजाक करते रहेंगे, और हम ये इंटेलेक्चुअल किस्म के सवाल भी पूछते रहेंगे कि जी आप प्रोटेक्टेड इंडस्ट्री में क्यों जाते हैं। अरे भाई, कोई गैर शरई गैर अखलाकी काम है, स्टेट ने बनाई क्यों प्रोटेक्टेड इंडस्ट्री? और अगर उस प्रोटेक्टेड इंडस्ट्री की ज़रूरत है तो अलग डिबेट कर लीजिए, लेकिन ये कोई गाली नहीं है प्रोटेक्टेड इंडस्ट्री। माइंडसेट हम लोगों का प्रॉब्लम है, और पढ़े लिखे लोगों का माइंडसेट का प्रॉब्लम है। ये तो वी आर नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट अनएजुकेटेड पीपल। ये जो आप यहाँ बैठे हैं पाकिस्तान इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ डेवलपमेंट इकोनॉमिक्स में, ये भी एक प्रोटेक्टेड इंडस्ट्री है। दिस इज द प्रोटेक्टेड इंडस्ट्री। इसमें क्या कंपटीशन है? तो हम ये प्रोटेक्टेड इंडस्ट्री अच्छी चीज़ है या बुरी चीज़ है, ये अच्छी डिबेट है। क्या जापान बगैर प्रोटेक्टेड इंडस्ट्री के तरक्की कर गया? अमेरिका बगैर प्रोटेक्टेड इंडस्ट्री के तरक्की कर गया? प्लीज़ डोंट गेट मी रॉन्ग, मैं नहीं कह रहा कि आप गाड़ियाँ को प्रोटेक्शन दें, और मेरा कोई गाड़ियों से ताल्लुक भी नहीं है। डॉक्टर साहब को शायद पता नहीं, आई हैव नथिंग टू डू विद कार मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, बट द पॉइंट इज़ इंडस्ट्री को देना है या नहीं देना, ये स्टेट का काम है। और अगर वो इस मुल्क के अवाम के लिए बेनिफिशियल है तो ज़रूर दें, और अगर नहीं है तो मत दें, हमारा काम नहीं है ये।
So, if I can just one word, that is what we would focus and emphasize on is, आप लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड तब क्रिएट करेंगे जब आप मेयार की एजुकेशन देंगे और सारे प्लेयर्स को उस मार्केट में पार्टिसिपेट होने देंगे। थैंक यू।